An error in a Form 4 filing is probably one of the most public mistakes that you can make as a stock plan administrator. The form is filed electronically, it appears almost immediately on the SEC's website, and it is distributed out to a bunch of other financial websites. But mistakes happen. So in this video, I'm going to explain how to correct a mistake on a Form 4 filing. Form 4 is the most common Section 16 filing. It's used to report almost any transaction that your insiders engage in. It's filed via the Edgar system, and the tricky part is that it is due just 2 days after the transaction occurs, which doesn't really give you very much time and admittedly creates a situation that is just ripe for mistakes. When you encounter a mistake on a Form 4 filing, the first question you want to ask is it necessary to correct that mistake? Unfortunately, in most cases, the answer is probably yes. But there are some mistakes that are so inconsequential that you don't need to file an amendment. For example, a mistake in the insider's address or just a typo on the form somewhere. When you are evaluating whether or not you need to file an amendment, one question to ask is whether or not all the transaction details are correct. Also, is the insider's status as an officer or director reflected correctly? And most importantly, is the mistake something that could be misleading to investors, especially with respect to how the short swing profits recovery provisions might apply to the transaction? If you do need to file an amended Form 4, what you will do is recreate the original filing, but you will include the date of the original filing in Box 4. Anytime you include a date in Box 4, that is a clue to the SEC and to investors that this is an amendment of a previously filed report. When you are recreating your original filing, you actually will not include everything that was on that original filing. Instead, you will only include the information that needs to be corrected. So if you had a transaction on the original filing that had some incorrect information, your amended report will only include that transaction, but now with the correct information. Or if there was a transaction omitted from that original filing, your amended report will only include the omitted transaction. The trickiest situation to correct is one where you reported a transaction that never actually occurred. Maybe you reported the same transaction twice. Unfortunately, there's no way to revoke or withdraw a Form 4 filing. You also can't file a blank Form 4 that says, oops, nothing to see here. So what we recommend that you do in this situation is when you prepare your amended Form 4, you do not include any transactions on it at all, not even the transaction that shouldn't have been reported. Instead, you include only the holdings that the error occurred in and the number of securities the insider owns in those holdings. Whatever the mistake is that you are correcting, don't forget to include a footnote on the amended form. The SEC requires a footnote explaining the nature of the amendment, and this is really helpful information for investors. You'll also need to assess whether or not the amendment creates a delinquent filing for the insider. If the amended filing is submitted after the deadline that applied to the original filing, chances are, yes, you've got a delinquent filing that you're going to need to disclose in your proxy statement. But there is a materiality threshold here. So some amendments might be so inconsequential that they don't create a delinquent filing. Your last question that you're probably wondering about is what happens in a situation where you discover an error on a Form 4, and since that form was filed, there have been a bunch of other Form 4 filings for the insider that now also contain incorrect information stemming from that original error. Do you have to file amendments for all of those Form 4s? And here I've got some good news for you. You only need to go back and amend that original report that was wrong, and that will be a deemed amendment of all of those subsequent filings. But it is probably a good idea to note those subsequent filings in the footnote that you include on the amended report. And that is my quick guide to fixing errors on Form 4. If you enjoyed my video today, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. That really helps us out, and you are notified when we post new videos. Win-win. Thanks for watching.